All right, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about subtracting real numbers. This, for some reason, gets a lot of people mixed up. Talking about real numbers, if you think back on a few lessons, real numbers can be anything, right? It can be negative numbers, decimals. For this particular video, we're going to be sticking with just integers, which are positive and negative numbers. Okay. But wanted to talk about a technique that you can do. We talked about adding real numbers in my last video. What we had was we had a negative number plus another negative number, or a negative number plus a positive number, and so you're just working with addition. Now if you like that video, subtracting real numbers can be about the same thing. So if we have 14 minus 8, now remember this is a positive 14 and a negative 8. So if you're doing subtraction, you can do the same thing anyway. You can go like this. 14, and you can put a plus sign here, parentheses, and a negative 8, if that helps you. It changes all the time for everybody. I've seen different people do different things, and so whatever works for you, I'm okay with. Alright, so this little technique of putting a plus sign here can really help you out if that makes more sense for you. Okay. Let's talk about some of these examples that I have. I'm going to put these up here on the board. So negative 12 minus 19. Okay, so negative 12 and a negative 19. This is one of those that, once again, people get really confused on. I say a good chunk of people are okay with this, and there's just always those kids that really struggle with negatives and the positives, and when do I put them together, when do I take them apart, and so hopefully we can help with that just a little bit. If you have a negative here on this side and a negative here, that means that they're both negative. If we looked at it the other way, like what I just did with this, means you have two negative numbers and you're adding them together. Now let me show you a different example. Before we solve this one, I'm going to show you the second example actually while we are doing the other one. Okay. Now, you'll notice that if you put the parentheses, you can kind of break it down yourself. If you put the parentheses and put a sign there, you'll notice that this sign is a plus, this sign is a minus, right? And you're trying to make these work together. This one has a negative on this side. This one is actually a positive number on this side. Now where we get confused a lot of the times is with this double negative. Okay. This one over here doesn't have the double negative. It has a negative on the left, okay, on this number, and a negative on this number. This one is a positive on this number. Now, these ones here, because there's a negative on each number and not a sign in the middle of a negative, this one we are going to put together. Okay, so we're going to put this one together. So that's a negative 31. Okay. Now, this is the second example. Now, sometimes I would hear my students in class, they would say, keeps, change, change. Okay. Sometimes I feel like we were really good about brainwashing kids to be able to say, keeps, change, change. What does that mean? I don't know. Okay, well, keeping, okay, so keep, change, change is fine if you can do that, all right? If you can keep that straight, that's great. That's a great way to memorize how to work with double negatives in the middle, or when you're subtracting a negative. But problem is, when you get something like this, or something like that. Sometimes I've had students who they get that mixed up, and so they'll start changing this, and they'll go positive, or they'll keep the negative and change it to negatives and all this other stuff. So I kind of have gotten away from that in my teaching, away from the keeps, change, and I have told them just to be careful and look for the negative signs together. Okay, if you have two negative signs together, then you're going to need to change the sign. So this is probably, I feel like, one of the more confusing things about subtracting real numbers is when you have the double negatives. So if you can remember that when you have two negative signs together, you have to add a positive. Okay. Now, a trick that I had been using before in some of my classes, we haven't got there yet in my videos, but with the negative signs, you'll notice that this parentheses always mean to multiply. Now, if you have a minus, okay, minus -7, if you multiplied that together, a negative times a negative is a positive. And for the most part, everybody can do that pretty well. So that's another reason why parentheses in these problems are really helpful. Once again, it's up to you. I'm just giving you some options. For this, we have the double negatives next to each other, so minus -7. So now we have a plus, okay? And so that would be 25, okay? There you go. All right, let's move into another one here. Let's do another couple examples. So we have a -2 and a -7, okay? -2, -7. Now, hopefully you pause the video and take a look at this and see if you can do it, because we did an example like this already. It was example 1. So go back and watch it and see if you can do it yourself. All right, -2, -7. So you're starting with this number on the left, and you are taking away 7 more. So that is when you put them together, okay? So that would be a -9. So starting with the number on the left, you're already in the negative, and then you're taking away 7 more. So now you're at a -9. Okay, now let's look at some of these, or this one here. So 11.7 minus -5. Okay, now I am putting these parentheses, but usually probably what you'll see is something like this. And so once again, you have the double negatives. And if we have the double negatives, you would change it to a positive. Okay, so we changed it to a positive, and now we can go ahead and add them together. There we go. Now, once again, if you have a calculator, please use it, all right? But adding the decimals and that type of stuff probably should be something that you put on a high priority, because algebra does have decimals. Actually, all the math that you'll have after this will have decimals, okay? All right, well, that is subtracting real numbers. Those are the easier parts of the numbers. We'll get into more advanced ones in here in a minute. If there's any questions, let me know. All right, thanks for watching.